Metal Claw Podcast. Metal Claw Podcast. Say metal, my friends.
Alright guys, welcome to episode 5 of the Metal Claw Podcast. Episode 5. This is Zach versus the Blue Red Mountain. As always, we have my co-host Tim from the Late Reviews.
What is up, man? I thought you were going to call me Blaze.
Yeah, that's right, guys.
That's my new name.
Tim has legally changed his name to Blaze. How do you spell that again?
Contrary, what you think it might be spelled, it's actually Blaise. Thank you.
So we got Blaze from the Late Reviews. I'm sorry, Mr. Blaze.
Yep.
So,
someone like me, I got sponsored by Dentine Ice, and I just decided to change my name to the closest thing to something that sounds cool. So,
See, he thinks he's so cool he can interrupt me every 10 seconds. I mean, he's already taken precedent over me. So
that's Blaze for you,
Before we get into this, guys, I just want to talk about the awesome episode we did last week with Lee from Drum Dums. We did a new metal episode. Shit was kick-ass. If you haven't seen it, it's on both of our channels. You can go over there and check that out because we actually got pretty early 2000s in the podcast. We had the Walkmans, our FlexFit hats on.
Adidas tracksuits.
Right, I was fucking practicing my demonic beatboxing. It was great. I sounded like that, but much, much sexier. So, yeah, we had Lee on. If you guys are not subbed to the Drum Dums channel, you need to head over there and check that out. I mean, Lee's a great guy. What do you think, Tim?
I think he's a prolific movie reviewer. I close my eyes for 1 second and I open them and he's got 3 reviews up. The entire Psycho trilogy. He's doing really great reviews, very knowledgeable, super nice guy, supportive as well.
Yeah, we both collabed with him multiple times. He's a really good guy. I mean, he has a very, very keen sensibility on movies. I really like listening to his movie reviews. If you want to feel like you're having a conversation with somebody, definitely check out a Drum Dums movie review. And he does everything horror. If you can think of a horror movie, he's probably reviewed it. So, do we have any news to talk about today?
We do. We got 2 little tidbits of news. One of them, whether you like them or not, it may appeal to you or not. But Asking Alexandria, either you love them or you hate them. I don't think there's a middle ground. I used to like them. I lost interest in them. But as you guys might know, their lead singer, Danny Worsnop, I think it's the ugliest last name. Danny Worsnop. He left the band a while ago, and they filled his position with Dennis, who is this YouTuber who got famous covering Asking Alexandria songs. Then he made that band Make Me Famous, and then that band crumbled to the ground. And then he filled in Danny Worsnop's position in Asking Alexandria, and I think he was filling in the position for at least a year, maybe a little bit more. And recently, I saw on Facebook that the guitarist Ben Bruce, I think his name is, did a live stream and basically said that they didn't kick Danny out. They didn't kick Dennis out. Dennis just stopped talking to them and left the band. So I'm sorry, guys, if you're crying listening to this right now. This is pretty crushing news for the Asking Alexandria fans. So Dennis is gone for the band, and I think there's rumors that Danny will return to fill the position as Asking Alexandria vocalist.
That kind of stuff happens a lot in, metal, country, rap, pop, rock, whatever. I like that one song that they put out on the radio a couple years ago. It kind of sounded like an 80s rock ballad. I really liked it. I thought it was a really good song. I don't know if it was the original singer or this other guy,
I think it was the original. I think that was like the last album he did.
I think the dude is a really, really talented singer. I think I think that was a very experimental album for them too. They changed their style a lot on that one.
Yep.
And you know, it's an adult business, and if you don't want to be an adult, I don't think you have any room to be in the business if you can't be an adult. Be like, hey, I'm leaving the band. It's that simple. Just say like, I don't want to be in your band anymore.
Yeah, man up.
Yeah, like just say, hey, I don't want to be in the band. Don't just not talk to them anymore.
I mean, this is the second band that this guy Dennis has fucked up, so I have a feeling that we won't be seeing him for a while. Maybe he shouldn't. Maybe he should just go solo. The one thing I remember is from Make Me Famous, he would perform live on stage with the Britney Spears headpiece. That was kind of embarrassing. Like the most like non-hardcore thing you could do.
I mean, he could go sing about baseball with Scott Stapp.
Let's go Marlins. Dugan. Duga. The other,
I just turned into a small child.
The other tidbit of information, other news, sorry, not information that we have, is Avenged Sevenfold, which we actually talked on the podcast briefly towards the end on last episode. We're all familiar with them. A while ago, they made a big announcement that they were leaving Warner Brothers Records. I'm not sure exactly what the whole reasoning behind it was, but regardless, they left Warner Brothers. And I think I think they might be on an independent label now. Definitely fact check me, correct me in the comments if you guys know the actual reason. But recently, I read that Warner Brothers is putting out a greatest hits album. And if that sounds fishy, then you're right, because basically they have no say. Avenged Sevenfold doesn't get a penny from this greatest hits album. And Warner Brothers is just going to rake in all the cash. And the good folks over at Metal Sucks made an article about it. And they put together the greatest hits collection on Spotify so you can listen to it for free and not support Warner Brothers. So I implore you guys to do the same thing if you want to listen to the greatest hits.
I mean, the record industry is just shitty. Everyone knows this. Like, it's all about the dollar amount, what you're going to get out of it. And, unfortunately, and I kind of feel for the record companies because, online streaming music has kind of crippled the industry. You're not going to sell as many physical records, as you used to. So they got to cut corners anyway to make money. But completely undermining the band and putting out greatest hits album without their knowledge, that's a little crazy. And I just did a fact check. They just went to Capitol Records.
Okay.
Which is a pretty good record company from what I can remember. I think there's some pretty popular bands on that label.
Well, I hope they treat them nicely because, it's really not fair. But I can imagine being on Warner Brothers' side and losing a monolith band like Avenged Sevenfold. Think, however, whether you like them or not, you can't deny that they are one of the biggest hard rock bands that has been famous for a long time.
Oh, definitely.
They're probably really sour about losing them.
I mean, I think, if you put out as many albums as Avenged Sevenfold has and how prolific they are, I probably would have went, I probably would have went the way that Metallica did. Metallica was on a big, studio record label for a really long time. They just left. They started their own record company, Blackened Records. And, if you got that much clout and you want to do your thing, start your own label,
Definitely.
And I think Metallica has been their, the way that they've done things since they left and started their own label, I'm completely okay with that, man. They put out, they did 2 concerts straight up. I think they did the Black Album in full, and they did Ride the Lightning in full, commemorating the anniversaries of the albums. And I think it had a whole bunch of different stuff with, re-releasing some records, reproduced versions. And I think, I'd love to hear like reproduced versions of the early Avenged Sevenfold albums. I'm sorry, I just went in a different direction than what you were talking about.
That would be so sick. I also was hoping that you'd say that. I wish they would have not gone to another record label. It's like, fool me once, okay, but maybe you don't wait for that fool me twice moment. Maybe they are huge. They could literally form their own record label and find a bunch of bands that sound a lot like them and make like kind of combat Warner Brothers. It'll be interesting to see where they go. I know they just released a song. Drum Dum's Lee mentioned it on the last podcast. He said it sounded like pretty damn good. So I'll definitely keep my eyes out. I actually haven't been keeping up with them, but all the power to them.
Yeah, I liked Nightmare. Nightmare was one of the first albums I tried to learn bass to, and I'm actually a pretty big fan of Hail of the King. I like the hard, like 70s style hard rock that they were doing on that album. And you can definitely hear some of the faster stuff. It's not as frequent throughout the album as it is in the other ones, but I think that was an experimental album, and I'm excited for the new one because I heard the new track and I think it's pretty good. So, that sucks that they're putting out a record without their permission, but it happens. So I wish the best for Avenged Sevenfold. What is the main topic? I'm sure they already know by clicking it, but what are we talking about today?
Well, if you didn't read the title and you clicked on this video, but you watched the last episode, we did say that we were going to do a prog metal episode, but schedules just didn't work out. We wanted to get Lee on this, and we really don't want to do the prog metal episode without Lee. So, that's still going to happen. We just don't know when, but that is definitely going to happen. But we are talking Trivium. Zach, why don't you talk about Trivium for a little bit, for those that don't know who they are, which they should.
So Trivium it's actually, I'm going to say this for both of us, is like one of our favorite bands. I'm pretty sure Tim likes Trivium as just as much, if not more, than I do.
I got a big Trivium tattoo on the back of my neck. You guys just would never know.
I'm just like, their symbol. One really small story here. Their symbol kind of looks like the Undertaker's symbol from WWE. So every time I see like a picture of somebody or a video of somebody online, I have to kind of look at their shirt really close to see, is that an Undertaker shirt or is that a Trivium t-shirt? Because I'm not sure. Like, Trivium is just a pretty cool. You could go a lot of different ways with this band. You could go metalcore, you could go deathcore, you could go thrash. They go a lot of different ways, and we're going to cover their whole discography, guys. Just like the Metallica episode, we're going to go in depth on each album and just talk about the things that stand out to us. So I'm going to tell you how I got into Trivium, and I believe I mentioned this on episode 1, way back on episode 1. But I'll tell you guys again if you missed that episode. But go back and watch episode 1.
Yeah, definitely.
Or listen to it.
You could watch it. It's just going to be a little bit.
You can watch it. You're just going to watch a thumbnail the whole time. You better like Metallica. I believe it was the summer of 2008. I just got out of high school. I'm a couple years older than Tim, so he was probably still in high school at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You probably a junior?
You're 3 years older than me, so.
Oh, you were a sophomore.
2 years.
No, you were junior, so I was 2 years older than you. I just got out of high school.
This is last year, by the way.
Yeah. So I was starting, like, when I was in high school, I was starting to get into more heavier stuff because I met a guy in school that is, into metal, into rock, got me into metal. And he started getting me into more heavier bands. And around this time was when Shogun came out. And Trivium for me has always been that band that took it to the next level for me, because the first band that I really started listening to that wasn't that mainstream rock music was Bullet for My Valentine.
Mhm.
And I discovered them when Scream Man Fire came out, which I absolutely adore that album. I think it's great. Someday I hope to talk about Bullet for My Valentine in depth because I have some serious opinions on that band. But they just never went to that next level for me. I could always tell that, they could be heavier, but they're choosing to do this. Trivium went that extra step. They put in that, they put in that force that just made me, oh, this is fucking awesome. I need more of this. So, I fell in love with them, started checking out their music. Shogun is one of my favorite albums from them, and we'll get into that later. But that's kind of how I got into Trivium. So, Tim, how'd you get into Trivium?
As you were talking, like I was trying to figure out, like, shit, like, do I remember how I got into them? And I think I got into them by seeing a ultimate guitar video of Matt Heffy doing there's this thing that they used to do that was can you play this? You think you can play this? And it was like the fucking heavy ass lick that, like, it was pretty much like a challenge, these guitar gods. And I remember at the time, I think Matt Heffy was like 18, 19. He was very young. And that's one of the main reasons that Trivium was talked about, is like these guys are shredding and they're all really young, or at least Matt Heffy was young. So that's when I first got them on my radar. Then I picked up, I think I heard Dying in Your Arms on some Pandora station or something like that. And I remember it, it was really, like, very, very cool. And then I picked up The Crusade from a record store for like $4. And then I worked my way back. So I did Ascendancy and then Crusade again, and then Shogun. And then they just grew on me. I got really, really into them, picked apart their music, and kind of brings me to where I am right now. In general, I mean, how do you feel about their skill set compared to other bands? Because you mentioned they were like the thing that you were looking for like what's heavier than Bullet for My Valentine. But
Yeah.
as compared to bands now, how do you feel about their skill set still?
I still feel like, Trivium is still one of the, they're still out there doing it. And like each album, I think they got progressively better.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to talk about that. Like each album, Ember to Inferno is their first album. And, every band is gritty and raw in their first album. No one is ever perfect unless you're a studio band. Boston!
That's the first band that came to mind, too.
So, you go from that to the Ascendancy to the Crusade, which is fucking awesome. We're going to talk about that, and then Shogun, Vengeance Falls, or not In Waves, Vengeance Falls, the self-titled album, and then Silence in the Snow. But going back onto how I got into Trivium, I actually remember how I got into Trivium, and it's very similar. It's just a small story I forgot to add was, and then I'll get back to what you originally asked me. I was also on Ultimate Guitar, and they were doing a lesson on Throes of Perdition from Shogun.
I have seen that video.
And just seeing Matt Heffy and the other guy, I forget his name, Corey.
Mm-hmm.
Playing together.
Corey Beaulieu.
Yeah. I'm probably going to talk about the lineup changes as well, because they've had 6 lineup changes. So I was like, wow, this is breaking my mind right now, because I thought Bullet for My Valentine was heavy, but these guys are bringing in fucking guitar work, man. This is good shit. And I'm like, the singer is almost as good as the lead guitar player on guitar. I was like, and the only other band that I could thought of at the time was Metallica.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awesome. And I was like, wait, there's so many other bands in metal.
Megadeth as well has 2 amazing lead guitarists.
They've had 2 lead guitarists that have been amazing throughout the entire career.
Mm-hmm.
My personal favorite for them was Chris Broderick and Dave Mustaine. Chris Broderick is just fucking genius. He could play anything. But I just feel like they had that skill set, and the thing is, I feel like they have always been constantly evolving, and working on their craft. And I think that's why they're still in the forefront of being one of those bands that, other bands strive to be.
I think within a pool of bands that sound alike right now, Trivium, while they don't sound the same as they used to, I think you're right. They have expanded their sound. They're always trying stuff, new stuff and new sounds. And regardless of how simple or how technical their music is, I still think they shine as one of the most unique and creative metal bands, and also faithful. I really feel like, I mean, they have roots in Iron Maiden, Metallica, Megadeth, all these amazing like big four bands. You can listen to their music and immediately pick out in inspiration and influences, which a lot of bands don't really do because they're trying desperately to make their own sound. Trivium somehow has their own sound and also pays homage to the classics.
Oh yeah, I could definitely, and I'm going to talk about that on Ember to Inferno. I heard about 5 different band styles in one song. So I was like, these guys are fucking talented, man. And like I said, there's been a lot of lineup changes. And if you could still put out really awesome music, having that many lineup changes, that's some talent. And like Matt Heffey wasn't even the original lead singer of the band. Someone else was. So, I mean, it's almost like this guy has become the front man they've been a band since 1999.
Yeah.
So they've been a band for over 17 years, which is ridiculous.
They're also from Florida too.
All right, so guys, you got our little bit of backstory, how we got into Trivium and, how we feel about the band. So we're going to finally get into the discography. So the first album we have to talk about, we're going to skip the EP. We're going to talk about Ember to Inferno.
The EP has pretty much songs they made their way onto Ember to Inferno, so that's why.
So we don't really have to talk about the EP. So, Tim, what are your thoughts on the first album?
Well, it was kind of hard for me to listen to this after hearing Ascendancy and The Crusade and Shogun prior to hearing this, because this is a very stripped down album. The production value is very raw. The guitars are very crunchy and more metalcore-y. I think I would consider this to be a metalcore album straight up. It's got a lot of harsh vocals. Matt Heffey's clean vocals are not the best. I do enjoy, though, his vocal melodies on this album as opposed to all the other albums, because this is very... this came out in 2003. And I get some hints. Maybe it's just because I've been listening to nu metal a lot since last week, but I get some hints of nu metal in the clean vocals. I like the song structure. This definitely shows Trivium at their core. No pun intended. But I do find that a lot of the songs blend together. The album starts out blistering. It's got that galloping riff in the first track, and throughout the whole thing, it's really good. But I do get the sense of tiring. I do get tired throughout the album. I don't listen to this often, but if it does come on my iPod on shuffle, I will definitely listen to some of the songs. But yeah, it's definitely a first album. They got so much better stuff after this. How about you?
Yeah, going back on what you said about nu metal, like I said, they formed in 1999. So I mean, I can definitely understand the nu metal influence, because at that point they could have went either way. I mean, but they definitely were a lot heavier than those nu metal bands, because I mean, Godsmack was the year before, and Korn came out like 6 years before that. So, but I listened to a couple tracks, and the one that I really want to talk about is Inception, The Bleeding Skies. Super crushingly heavy song. I definitely got a lot of death metal influence on this one. Thrash metal, and if you go through Trivium's discography, you'll see thrash metals on each one of those albums. But I could definitely feel Slayer influence on this track, And for you more like people that are into more death metal, I definitely felt an Opeth influence on this track as well. So I could definitely see that there's a death metal influence on the band at this point in their career when they're first starting, when they're coming out the gate with some heavy shit. And like, I really liked it. And I skipped through the rest of the album, and I definitely felt a lot of death metal on this. So you said metalcore. I'm going deathcore on Ember to Inferno.
It definitely, they definitely. I think one thing I love about Trivium is that there are so many different genres of metal. They're trying to please a wide range of metalheads, and I think that's why they're such a widely accepted band. Because you got deathcore, I got metalcore. I also get thrash metal from this album too, and the vocals go in between, metalcore and like deathcore.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to talk about.
And
Heffy's, and thrash. Heffy's harsh vocals are pretty decent on this album. I'm not the biggest fan of the cleans on this one, and I'll definitely talk about that more on Ascendancy. But I was not feeling the clean vocals on this album. But I can also credit that to him going from being the lead guitar player in the band to being the rhythm guitar player and the singer. Because, when they first formed, Matt Heffy wasn't the singer of the band. He was only the lead guitar player.
I do not know on which albums Corey started to do screaming, because when I would watch live videos of them, sadly I haven't seen them live, but when I watched live videos of them, it's kind of like, like when you don't know what a certain band looks like and then you see a live video and you're like, holy shit, I never knew that Corey did vocals, screaming. And I'm not sure when I'm hearing Corey and when I'm hearing Matt, but I believe on this album it is all Matt. But how cool is that, though? You get amazing, even though they're a little bit rough on this album, I still think they're really, really good and unique. You get a singer who's amazing at clean vocals and amazing at harsh vocals, and has both a unique harsh vocal sound and a unique clean sound as well.
Yeah, this is definitely like, I would like to have been around in the early 2000s listening to this kind of metal when it was coming out. Because nowadays, if you go over and listen, if you just cross that stream from rock into metal, you'll hear this a lot. Mm-hmm. And Trivium is not the only band that does that. There are so many, like, guys, if you like musicianship and talent, people can say what they want about metal. Some metal vocalists are one of the best vocalists that you'll hear that can do harsh vocals and cleans.
We just came off of a power metal episode, talk about versatile vocalists.
Yeah, let's move on to Ascendancy. I definitely feel like this one still has the death metal influence on it. This isn't my favorite album from them. Actually, I'd probably rather listen to Ember to Inferno, to be honest with you.
Whoa, my God.
I don't hate the album. I didn't say that.
Shade over here.
I did not say that. I did not say I didn't like it.
I didn't expect this.
It's just, I feel like this is that in-between album.
You're going off the script, Zach.
I am going off the script. Fuck the law. Fuck the rules.
Fuck up, Zach.
All right. Come at me, Trivium fans.
Wow.
Sophomore albums are strange for any band. Sometimes they're really, really awesome. Like, you can go, here's a perfect example. Ride the Lightning is a sophomore album from Metallica, and it's just so different from the first one, but it's still good. It's still Metallica in the same way. And then fucking Masterpiece, Master of Puppets comes out afterwards. I just feel like this is an in-between album for them, and they were going, I feel, more present day. I'm talking Vengeance Falls, Trivium on this album with the fast drums. Drums is key on this because the drum work, Travis Smith's drum work on this album is insanely fucking awesome. It's
Yeah.
really good, guys. If you're a fan of drums, this is definitely the album to listen to. The guitar tone was for me on this album. Heffy's cleans were definitely more. Yeah, they were definitely a lot better on this album. And I can say sophomore album. They had time to tour. They had time to write new music. They had time to practice their craft.
They went, I mean, speaking of that, they went from Life Force to Roadrunner Records. I mean, I don't know how big Life Force was, but Roadrunner Records is massive. If you made it on there, you're pretty much good to go. So I actually was shocked that you said you'd rather listen to Ember to Inferno than this album, because if you look at a lot of different album reviewing websites, a lot of metalheads and fans will say that this is their best album and that they've never topped this album. I will say that this was my favorite for a long time. I would say back when I was listening to them heavily in 2010 and 11, this was my favorite album without a doubt, because I kind of liked the radio-esque style of the songs. Dying in Your Arms, A Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation, Pull Harder on the Strings of Your Martyr, all of those have music videos. All of those are songs that, it's kind of like Bullet for My Valentine, like Tears Don't Fall. You could play that on the radio. It's still heavy. And I think at the time I really enjoyed that because it was easy to get into. There was fast crushing parts, but also radio friendly choruses. Like Dying in Your Arms is without a doubt a radio song. But ironically, one of my favorite songs on the album, which as I listened to it today, I listened to it again in preparation. I gotta admit, this album doesn't do it for me anymore. I do think it's still a very high point in their career, sort of like how I do enjoy Ride the Lightning from Metallica a lot out of all their other albums. I love the song Departure, which is track 11. It's very melodic, and I think if you take Ember to Inferno, it's a straightforward hardcore album, just fuck you, hit you in the face. This album takes its time, and you have Heffy really showing his vocal range, with cleans especially, way more cleans than Ember to Inferno.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. I think the track that really stood out to me was Rain. I really liked that song. Pull Harder on the Strings to Your Martyr. I like the song. I can't take the music video seriously at all because Matt Heffy looks like a 12-year-old boy. Like I love the song, but when he plays with that bowl cut, I don't understand. Like,
quick poll here: which hairstyles do you like of Matt Heffy? Do you like
long hair,
short hair, or long hair?
I like long-haired Matt Heffy, dude.
Or the fringe.
But gauges, man.
I like long hair Heffy too, which we'll get to that.
Long hair Heffy. Long hair Heffy is coming. I think one more album from now.
Yep. Cool. Well, so The Crusade, let me make sure I don't hit back by mistake and I don't hit X. The Crusade is very controversial, which is funny because I've seen a few people shout out to Circuits of Time reviews. He just posted The Crusade because it's hit 10-year anniversary. So how cool is that? And I was kind of impressed. Like he mentioned this album and he didn't ever mention that it was a ripoff or anything like that. And if you hear about The Crusade, basically this is the Metallica album by Trivium. They just tried to sound too much like Metallica. And this album is a thrash album. There are some heavy parts, but the guitar tone, thrash, the riffs, thrash, the vocals, thrash. I actually really love this album. I've never not liked it. But before I say any more, I will say that the coolest part for me about this album, because I really like all the riffs, I like all the songs. It's fast, crushing. Matt Heffy's got a great voice on this. This definitely has less harsher vocals, which is interesting. The coolest part for me is that all these songs are based off of news articles. So a lot of politically charged lyrics, and a lot of stuff based on true stories.
Definitely interesting, and that's definitely thrash metal for you. I just gravitated towards this album because I love thrash and I also love Metallica. And Trivium is a
I did
heavier
not know
version of
that.
Metallica. Yeah, if you guys did not know, I like Metallica. I like Metallica. Hey Tim, you know I like Metallica.
Think I missed the first 2 times.
I really like the straightforward thrash style of this album, and they definitely still have their death metal influence on this one, like I've been saying.
Mhm.
But I just like that really just stripped down thrash style. I like the guitar tone, which I think is fucking brilliant.
Yes.
I think they have a better. People say that they're ripping off Metallica for this album. I think that they have a better guitar tone than Metallica on this album.
Damn, triggered.
I'm sorry, I don't like the sound of rubber bands because that's what Metallica's freaking guitar tone sounds like now.
Actually, speaking of Ultimate Guitar, I actually saw an Ultimate Guitar video for Entrance of the Conflagration. Conflagration, yeah.
That's why I didn't say it, because I didn't think I could understand.
That riff is beautiful. This album is probably one of the most technical albums by them.
I definitely felt more dueling guitar style riffs on this album. And I always thought that was awesome when both guitars are playing the same melody and it sounds different yet the same at the same time. I like that doubled up style. I've always liked that doubled up style. It makes you sound heavier, makes you sound more technical when you're playing. And I think that just adds to the thrash. Dual guitars is thrash.
Mm-hmm.
Name a thrash song that doesn't have a dual guitar part in it. There are a few, but still, it's very prominent in thrash. And I could definitely
power metal.
Yeah, power metal. I could definitely feel like Trivium I feel like they were just paying homage to the thrash genre, and there's nothing wrong with that.
I kind of feel bad for them, because it's like, can't they just, pay homage to their roots as well? I mean, they obviously had no problem letting people know that they liked Metallica. I mean, it was pretty much a known fact. I have distinct images of Matt Heffy wearing an Iron Maiden t-shirt, and there are Iron Maiden moments within this album specifically. I mean, the Crusade is very Iron Maiden. To make a whole 10-minute opera that you can listen to and picture stuff in your head without any vocals, that's pretty awesome. I actually really enjoy To the Rats. It's a fast, straightforward song, great galloping riffs. And there are some really almost like breakdown moments. I think this was them trying to get away from doing radio-friendly songs.
Yeah, I could definitely tell on this one. I mean, the vocals are more geared towards your metalhead and not your average radio listener. But yeah, definitely the vocal style and definitely the lyrical content on this album is not radio friendly. Unless you're trying to spark a war. But that's always been an lyrical content for Trivium, because that's another thing that I didn't get to cover. With Matt Heffy's ancestral roots, I believe he's half Japanese.
Yes.
I always felt an Asian style on their albums, especially their album cover arts. Not for the latest few albums, but definitely the first few. Ember to Inferno, no, but Ascendancy, The Crusade, Shogun, definitely Shogun. You can definitely see that there's like an Asian influence on them as well. Definitely musically. Then we're going to get into that on Shogun.
Have you actually seen a while ago? Matt Heffy posted a picture. He got his entire body finally finished with tattoos. That man has some incredible pieces of artwork on his body. Like it's all Japanese themed. Very intricate work.
He's not shy of his heritage at all, and that's something to be really proud of.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm another guy. Like tell you right now, I have Irish ancestry, and I have 2 Irish tattoos on my arm. And I can definitely, I can agree with that. If you want to, represent your culture, and I can definitely tell that You can hear it in their lyrics. You can hear it in their music. You can see it on their album covers. And, I think that's a good step into the next album, which is Shogun.
Wow. Probably one of my favorite. If not, I mean, I go back and forth. We'll save that to the end. But so I will just say that this is probably their most accomplished album, in my opinion. Not saying it's their best, but it's their most accomplished. This was, I believe, the first album that they started using 7-string guitars on. I only know that because I tried learning these songs on guitar, and I was like, shit, I need another fucking string on this.
This doesn't sound right at all.
7 strings.
What?
That's 6. So I don't even know where to start on this. The opening track is brutal. So brutal. I do think, though, they have Metallica syndrome where it should end before it actually ends. I hate when the song, the opening song's Kirasute Gomen, and it ends, and then you're like, oh, that was a sick song, and then it starts playing again. I used to have a shirt that said, "We'll take their fucking heads" on the back of it. I will just say, Throes of Perdition, this is their single, mind you. What a crushing single to put out. Around the midway of the song, there is a bridge that is featuring blistering double bass and low guttural vocals. Again, not sure if it's Corey or if it's Matt, but I could listen to that on loop. It is disgustingly heavy, especially for Trivium. And I think that is what comes to mind. Like, if I want to hear heavy Trivium, Shogun is what I'll listen to. The only other thing I really love about this album, I mean, I love the whole thing, but is the Iron Maiden cover. They covered the song Iron Maiden by Iron Maiden. Killer.
My history with Shogun is, like I said, pretty prolific. This is one of the first metal albums that I ever listened to. And this is probably second, if not first, favorite album from this band. I just feel like, and this might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, I feel like this is the most progressive that they've been.
Definitely.
Definitely have a more classical influence with the classical guitars, which is also played by Matt Heffy. I didn't know if anyone knew that or not, but he played the classical guitar tracks on the album. I definitely felt like this was a weird shift in pace because, and that is a big thing in progressive metal, is, weird time changes in time structure, because it could go from blisteringly heavy to super slow.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you a short little story. The track that you were talking about at the beginning, Gomen, I have my Trivium happy dance that I do during that song because the chorus is so light and poppy compared to the verse. And I always do my Trivium happy dance when I listen to that song. But some of my favorite tracks on this album have to be Throes of Perdition, which is the first Trivium song I've ever heard. Into the Mouth of Hell We March.
Love that. Love the lyrics too.
His vocal melodies on that song are awesome. Love singing it. Down from the Sky, The Calamity, Insurrection, He Who Spawned the Furies, or Prometheus and the Crucifix.
I love of Prometheus and the Crucifix. That is a crushingly fast song too.
And the song Shogun, which is fucking awesome.
The Crusade too.
This has to be one of their best albums and their most experimental at this point. And I feel like this is Trivium at their best.
Agreed.
A lot of people can say that the Crusade is topped out. They're not going to get any better than the Crusade. I'm saying Shogun's better than the Crusade. I'm not saying it's better than Ascendancy, but I definitely think that Shogun is a very, very, it's like top contender for best Trivium album.
Trivium's tough because I think, as I said, like a lot of people either love, like these cult metalheads who still, will mention that they like Trivium. I've seen a lot of people say it's either Ascendancy or Shogun. A lot of people skip over Crusade. But then I also see a lot of people who love Crusade as well. So it's kind of cool that this band has so many different fans of their albums that, you know, they really gave their fans something to enjoy for each type of demographic.
I mean, you know, you can say that they're trying to rip off Metallica, but you know what? Trivium didn't drastically change their style in the 90s to something different. Each album is Trivium. You can tell it's Trivium.
Yeah, and a lot of that
even,
a lot of that goes to Matt Heffy. I mean,
he's like I said in the new metal episode that Solly Arner is Godsmack. Matt Heffy is Trivium. In my opinion.
Can I also just bring up one thing that this kind of goes for all of the albums that we're going to talk about? Their bassist, Paolo, is such a great bassist. He uses his fingers. I mean, not that that's like revolutionary, but you know, in metal, it's always cool to see someone traditionally play bass fast as well. And one thing I love, and especially as you progress through their discography, their production has gotten better and better and better. And a lot of bands, you can barely hear the bass. You can fucking hear the bass in all of Trivium's albums. That's sick.
Even Ember to Inferno, you can hear the bass. And you can definitely hear the bass on the first track. One of my favorite bassists in metal. I think he's super, super talented. And one of the most consistent members of the band. Other than, you know, Matt Heffy. And I think Corey's been in there from the start,
I believe
too.
the three of them are the core members.
But, you know, just if you ever want a guy that will give you 100% every time, every album, he's definitely your guy for bass.
Technical, too.
Yeah, definitely technical. I've tried to play some of their stuff on bass before, and I'm like, bro, how do you do this? Like, I don't know how. So,
and another really cool thing before I move on to the next album is that, which is actually an important thing to mention before I move on to the next album, because the next album is a game changer. Trivium has never been show-offs. They are, even when they get technical, like I actually consider them to be kind of like Megadeth, you know, like Dave Mustaine just makes solid songs and he uses the solos to show off. And that's what Trivium does. Their riffs are never like guitar wankery. It's always solid, unique, new, fresh licks with incredible guitar solos where that's where they used to show off. So I respect them for that. They're not just trying to get a gag out.
No, definitely not.
So Zach, bring us into the next album. What is it?
So we're going to talk about the self-titled album. Oh, wait. There it is. Oh, wait. We forgot about that album. Wow. We need to... can you say that again? Because I fucked up. I forgot about it in Waves. Because it's so memorable.
I almost forgot, too. We should just leave that in, actually.
I'm leaving that in. So we're going to talk about... And that was some amazing growl work from Blaze.
My mom's asleep right now, so I gotta keep it down.
So... we're going to talk about In Waves. Now, In Waves...
In Waves! In Waves!
Okay, so let's talk about In Waves seriously here. This is the first album to not have Travis Smith on drums. And some can say that's a bad thing, but, you know, when they brought the new guy in, and this is a guy that they have been... friends with for years. They were friends with him before they started Trivium. They were friends with him while they were in Trivium together, you know. And he can also do gravity blasts, which is not easy.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things to do on drums, to be honest with you. We talked about drums so much on this album, or this podcast. We probably should have had Lee on this one too.
I know.
But it was definitely this was a new direction for the band. And In Waves isn't a horrible album. It's not people's favorite. There are some tracks on here that I really like Dusk Dismantled, Inception of the End, Watch the World Burn, and Shadow the Skies Above, which was a bonus track.
God of War 3 soundtrack.
Yeah, that they did for that, which is also really good.
Killer song.
They also covered Slave New World by Sepultura, and I love that
It's a
song.
good
I
song.
personally covered it myself on Facebook, and I actually played it on a Stratocaster. So,
Nothing wrong with that.
if
You're talking about a
anybody,
person.
if anybody knows Sepultura, they know that when Max Cavalera was in the band and their new singer both played Stratocasters. So, I mean, playing it on a Stratocaster was pretty fucking brutal for me. I was like, I feel like I'm in a death metal band right now, bro. Like, still really solid cover. I think Trivium is one of the best at covering songs.
Agreed.
They're very, like, Disturbed is very good at doing covers. Tim has his opinions on Disturbed, but I think they can actually make some pretty solid covers. This is just a strange album. Tim, what do you think of In Waves?
The reason you say it's strange, one is definitely, you're right, the new drummer. He actually came from a deathcore background. So that explains the heavier parts of it. And I mean, the first song they released was In Waves, the title track. Starts off with a breakdown. We've never really heard a straightforward breakdown in a Trivium song. We've heard thrash breakdowns every once in a while, but this was very Trivium trying to come up in the times, make something that's relevant to the music. And one thing to mention is that Shogun came out in 2008 and In Waves came out in 2011. This was after a while of just taking a break. Maybe they were, I think they were trying to fill in the position of their new drummer. And I think they were just trying to find a new sound. I think a lot of people voiced their opinion of wanting them to go back to Ascendancy. And I remember reading an interview where Heffy said, like, we're going to try to go back to our roots and make more straightforward mainstream songs. And they did that with this album. And I respect them for it. I personally, every once in a while, I'll throw this on and it's a fun listen. It's a pretty quick album. But it's not my favorite. I do love In Waves. I love the song Black is really sick. And the song Forsake Not the Dream is pretty cool. There's a lot of like softer songs on this album too.
Yeah.
How do you feel about those?
I like it when a band slows down and does a ballad every once in a while. I mean, I think that shows more, talent with songwriting, because writing a blisteringly heavy song, it takes some guts and determination, but true songwriting, being able to slow down like that and create such an awesome song, it takes a lot of talent as well.
This reminds me of when Linkin Park came back with Minutes to Midnight and they had slower songs on there. This album is just another side of Trivium that we hadn't really seen. I mean, I remember they toured also, I think on like the Monster Energy tour or something like that. They toured with a lot of mainstream bands. I think they actually toured with Asking Alexandria. And I think they were just trying to explore things that they didn't really do before and tour with bands that would actually get them well known with other bands. And I think, Trivium had already solidified themselves in the metal community, but this is just a nice way to make some new fans. I respect it.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good album. I think it's a solid album. It's not my favorite from them. And guys, don't get scared. If you want the heavy is here. Watch the World Burn has one of my favorite riffs from them ever on it. It's just a crushingly heavy track. If that'd be one that you definitely want to check out first, if you want to get like your heavy Trivium fix on this album.
In Waves, I mean, I know it's the title track and it's the single, but that's a pretty fucking heavy song. And I actually love the intro track. The intro track is like an instrumental with this awesome distorted keyboard.
It also ends with an instrumental as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that little proggy influence from Shogun is still there on In Waves. It's not as prominent because, like I said, guys, Shogun is their most progressive. And we'll go back to that later.
In Waves would be a great place to start if you're new to Trivium and you like more mainstream music. I think actually the silver lining is that that's a great place to start.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to the next album.
A self-titled album.
We're gonna go to the self-titled album, Trivium. Actually, no, guys, because I'm a fucking idiot. Said that wrong for 3 weeks. We're gonna go into Vengeance Falls, the one with the big robotic T on it. Not Tim's favorite album from the band.
Want to know why?
Why?
Guess why. You want to know who produced it? You want to know who produced it?
I'm ready. Tell him.
David Draymond produced this album, and you know what? This album came out in 2013, and that's 2 years after In Waves. Again, they're kind of taking a break. They're coming back. And when I heard David Draymond was producing it, this is before Super Collider, by the way. I think he did this first, and then he did Super Collider. I remember the internet just fucking blew up. Like, no one wanted David Draymond to touch Trivium. So before I go into my thoughts, though, Zach, I know you really like this album, so let her rip.
Yeah, so I'm actually pretty outspoken about this album. I, at the time, was not the biggest fan of In Waves. It was just coming off of Shogun, and I was like, really? You're going to put this out?
Yeah.
And then Vengeance Falls came out. And I got it right away because I'm a big fan of Trivium. I'm really excited when they put out an album, no matter what it is. And I can listen to this album over and over and over again. It's very listenable. It's definitely heavier than In Waves in some different ways. But I just feel like they're going back to what I really liked on The Crusade. And it was just crushingly heavy track after crushingly heavy track. There are some slower songs on this album, but not as many as In Waves. Mm-hmm. I feel like the Flash influence was still there, but I think there's more of a metalcore influence on this album.
Definitely.
Matt Heffy's vocals are on point on this. They're really good. The growls are there. The clean vocals are great. And this is unfortunately the last album to have harsh vocals, and we'll talk about that.
We will talk about that.
Tim, what are your opinions on Vengeance Falls?
I'm not as into it as you are. I remember when this came out, like I said, I can't forget that. Can't forget the feeling of my my soul being crushed away.
His entire world falling into ashes.
my vengeance falling. I will say it's not a bad listen, especially coming after In Waves. This was what I wanted In Waves to sound like. I will say, and I know, I'm not gonna be too mean, but I do feel like David Draymond had an influence on Matt Heffy's vocals. The vocal syncopation is there, just like David Draymond. I'm not saying it sounds identical, but there's definitely a more hard rock element to the melodies of this album. It's not there, like you said, there are harsh vocals, but this album is a little lighter. It's fast, very crushing, but in a weird way, melodic and light and catchy. And I think that deserves its place. It's kind of like The Crusade, but a little bit more poppier and a little bit more Corey. Not Corey, the guitarist, but core-ish.
Core-ish. Apple course.
I just, unfortunately, there aren't many songs that, like, I've listened to the album 5-6 times, not as many times as you probably, but I look through the track list and I don't see one that I would want to listen to again, as opposed to listening to the whole album straight through, which I guess is a good thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is another album to have a cover, and this actually has a Misfits cover on it. Skulls, We Are 138.
Oh, yeah. Wait, that was a special...
it was a special, on the special edition. That's 2 extra.
I did listen to that a while ago, and I remember really enjoying it. I gotta hear that again.
And actually, one of my favorite songs on the album is one of the more slower, almost doomier tracks, which is the last song, Wake, The End Is Nigh. Really, really, really love that song. Actually, I really like every song on this album, to be honest with you. I think like this is really, really solid. It's not Shogun. It's never going to be Shogun,
Yeah.
unfortunately, but it's still good. And I feel like you said, In Waves is a good starter album. I definitely feel like Vengeance Falls is a perfect starter album for people,
I can
especially
agree.
if you can't handle how heavy the first three albums are from them.
One thing I will give to this album is Matt Heffy's clean vocals have never sounded better. His voice constantly gets better and better and better. And this album, I mean, In Waves, I actually don't think he sounded too good on it. It might have been the production value, might have been the song structures, but this is like straight right back to like, like you were saying, like Ascendancy and The Crusade. But his cleans are just phenomenal. So if you do like his cleans, definitely check this album out.
Are you ready for Silence in the Snow?
I am. This is probably the least familiar I am with this album. This album came out in 2015, October 2nd, 2015. And Zach, you mentioned it earlier. This is the first album that has no harsh vocals, not even from Corey. It's all Matt Heffy singing. And like I mentioned on Vengeance Falls, I actually feel like this album features some incredible clean vocals from Matt Heffy. The vocal melodies are there too. They're very unique. But unfortunately, Trivium to me is crushing, fast, heavy, harsh, and clean. And without the harsh, there's just no redeeming value for me to listen to this.
I mean, all right. I give a band creative license to change things up every once in a while. But when I saw that Michael Biscuit was going to produce this album, this is the guy that produces the Alter Bridge albums. And I like Alter Bridge. I'm a really big fan of Alter Bridge because I remember, Creed was done.
Mhm.
The guys from Creed without Scott Stapp were teaming up with a new singer. They were going to be heavier. And I really did like Alter Bridge. First couple albums were pretty good. Third one, fourth one, oh God. I'm not even going to talk about that. I actually prefer Tremonti, Mark Tremonti's side project, which if you have not checked that out, he put out 3 solid metal albums. They're pretty good. I knew, I was like, Trivium, what are you doing? But they brought in a guy that knows how to produce solid rock hits. So, I mean, I knew that they were going to drop the harsh vocals on this album, and there was an internal sad face on me for this one.
Yeah.
Because I heart Matt Heffy's harsh vocals, and I was like, bro, why are you doing this to me, man? Opeth already did it to me. Why are you doing it to me too? But I understand the business aspect of bringing in a rock producer to do this album, because this really is Trivium's rock album.
Agreed. It's majorly, well, shit, I don't even think that's a word. It's the majority of the album is rock, and there are some slower, more, and they're not dancey, but they follow that more poppier drum riffs, and they're slower and a lot more like almost nu metal-y, if you want to say it, like alt rock, maybe it's.
I don't think I could go full nu metal.
More alt rock then, more of like the hard rock, I guess. But it does get the guitar solo. The guitar solos are there. You're not losing full on Trivium. I would actually say, if you didn't like In Waves, then maybe you should start with Vengeance Falls and this album, and then go back to get more crushing stuff, because it's not like this is a terrible album, but for a real Trivium fan who's listened to all their music, this was a bit of a letdown. It's not a bad listen, again, just like Vengeance Falls is for me, but
like I said, it's not the best album. It's not a great album. It's a good album. It's a solid album. And that's one thing that you could give, Trivium credit for. They have an album for everyone. They have an album for anybody. If you're a hardcore metalhead, they have an album for you. If you like rock, they got an album for you. If you're new into heavier music, they have an album for you. I mean, Trivium has an album for everyone.
Yeah.
And, it's most definite on this album because there are no harsh vocals. So if you're starting to get into metal, I guess Silence in the Snow would be the album for you. And side note, I really like the album cover on this one.
It's beautiful, very Japanese as well.
It actually reminded me. Did you ever see that Michael J. Fox movie, Frighteners?
No.
If you ever look up the movie poster for Frighteners, it reminded me of that. And Frighteners is actually directed by Guillermo del Toro, if you didn't know that.
Frighteners. I may have seen. I'm not sure. I'm reading on the Wikipedia right now. The Guardian, which is a news website, said if they continue down this path, Silence in the Snow might be remembered as the moment Trivium secured their status as modern metal greats. And I think that there's some truth in there because they said modern metal and metal. There's no subgenre attached to it, no thrash metal, whatever. So if you want to look at this album as a metal album, I'm okay with that. I think that's a true statement.
Well, I'm actually looking at the Wikipedia page right now, and they said that this album is the closest to arena rock for them, and I can definitely see that. And this also marks the return of 7-string guitars.
Really?
Did not know that.
It's not as prevalent though. Like in Shogun, you can hear the 7-string.
Yeah.
This album, I actually could not really. It's not as show-offy. This album.
I think they might have been trying to go for a bigger sound, like more depth. With 7 strings, just adding a little bit more ambiance to the album. Not trying to be crushingly heavy, but trying to be bigger. And arena rock makes sense. I mean, if you're going to do that, then it definitely makes sense.
I got a question for you, Zach.
Okay.
To close out the discography, before we go into which one is our favorite album, what do you want to see from Trivium next? What should their next album sound like? If we're saying that Trivium made an album for every single fan, what's next?
I actually feel like Trivium should make a straight-up prog album. Straight-up prog. I think they're talented enough for it. I think that, they've reached a point in their career that they can do whatever they want. Because they put out Silence in the Snow and people didn't hate it. A lot of people love the album.
Yeah.
And they definitely, you can tell if you listen to their discography in full that they have the potential and the talent to do a progressive metal album. Now, in the way that I would actually prefer them go progressive death metal. And it has been done. Opeth did it. And Opeth did it beautifully. And if you could do it as halfway as good as Opeth did, I mean, they could have another hit on their hands, another huge hit,
another Shogun. That's what I'm picturing when you're saying that. Like, basically, you're saying make Shogun again, but make it less straightforward, make it even more experimental and technical.
Yeah, definitely.
I would like that too. I think they've done enough straightforward stuff. Let's go back to taking a risk, trying something. Maybe make Shogun, but make it more technical, more experimental, and also make it a concept album.
Oh yes, because Shogun was definitely, in my opinion, I felt like it was a concept album. I thought that I was listening to a story in Shogun. Because down to the album artwork, in the artwork in the book. If any of you want to get any album, definitely get the Shogun album and just look at the artwork within the leaflet that's in the jewel case because it's gorgeous Japanese artwork.
Yeah,
it's beautiful, guys.
They're like brush paintings, right?
Yeah,
those are beautiful. So, what's your favorite Trivium album?
Oh, you're gonna throw it to me?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So this might be a controversial opinion. The way that I've talked about a couple of the albums,
I feel an impending doom coming on.
Tim's not ready for it. My favorite Trivium album has to be Vengeance Falls.
Oh.
I'm sorry. I just like the guitar tone on this album. I like how straightforward it is. I like that it's not bordering. It's bordering on different genres, and I like how they can just blend that perfectly. I actually like the way this album sounds, and it's not for the vocals. I'm not listening to Vengeance Falls for the vocals. I'm listening to Vengeance Falls for the crushingly heavy tracks. Each heavy song in there is balls to the wall, and I love it. And I mean, if they could have that tone on the next album, I'd be okay with it.
I respect it. Hey, I respect it. No hate. No hate. It's not, like I said, it's not like I hate that album. I will gladly listen to that. If that's the album I have to hear from Trivium, bring it on. I will gladly listen to it. I have to go with Shogun simply because it is one of the first albums that got me really into. This sounds so stupid. Really into playing air guitar. I would practice while I'm listening to the album, and I actually feel like I got better by doing air guitar to that, doing all the triplets and the tremolo picking. Like I said, I keep bringing this up, but Throes of Perdition, the breakdown with the fast double bass and the low guttural vocals, I remember literally getting full chills when I heard that. There's so many songs on that album that are just fast, amazing riffs. As much as I love Crusade, I got to give it to Shogun. It's just a great album to constantly go back to. They were really they were in the zone when they made that album.
Oh, they were definitely on point on that album. And I can say the same thing about Vengeance Falls. I mean, they were in a groove.
Yeah.
They had their drummer. They worked out all the kinks in Waves. And I feel like, it was a step forward, even though it's not their greatest album for them. Considering the past, I think it was a nice progressive step forward. And progressive is the key, because there are some progressive elements on Vengeance Falls as well.
Definitely.
Why I said they should do a progressive death metal album. Just go full out. And I think that they're the band to do it. They have the clout. I think they can do it. Not taking anything away from Shogun, because it was the first Trivium album I ever heard, and it's probably the best Trivium album I've heard. Not saying that Vengeance Falls isn't great, because I think it's my favorite. Mm-hmm. It may not be the best, but I love the tone. I can't help it. I really love the tone of the album. I think it's straightforward metalcore,
like the
thrash
album
influence. The album artwork, yeah.
To be honest,
and
it's fucking cool.
It is really cool. It's definitely better than the In Waves album art. It's not, I mean, I feel like I know what they were going for with the album art for In Waves. It's stripped down. It's dirty. That's what they were going for.
They did a lot of black and white video to market the album too, and that was really beautiful. Like, in general, I think Matt Heffy's an artist as well, or whatever he does, I know he's got a big hand in the artwork selection, and throughout Trivium's discography, they have incredible album artwork. So even up to Silence in the Snow, I mean, it's beautiful.
It is. It really is. That white with subtle shadow behind the skull. It's great. And I feel like Vengeance Falls has that atypical metal album art. And that's not saying that's not a bad thing. I actually think that that's pretty sweet, because, that's them embracing their metal roots. I mean, I feel like that could be a album art for a metal band. I think, a lot of bands do this. I want this big metal structure in the background. This is gonna look really cool, man. Like, I got a fucking vision here. And he probably had a lot of influence on that one as well. So, I mean, you're going Shogun, I'm going Vengeance Falls. There's an album in between there that neither of us picked. But, solid albums, both sides.
Solid band. Guys, if you haven't listened to Trivium yet and you like metal and metalcore, I think metalcore is probably the easiest place to get into Trivium from. Please give them a listen because I have a feeling, especially if you like early thrash, I have a feeling you will like them. Even if you just like a few of their songs, there's a really good chance you will like them.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if you want to dip your toe into metal, Trivium is one of the bands that you definitely want to try out first. Trivium, Bullet for My Valentine, guys like that.
They sound very similar, but that's a
Yeah.
whole other episode.
That's a very angry episode. Sorry. At a certain point of their career, that's a very angry episode. But maybe someday we'll do Bullet for My Valentine. If you guys want to hear that, let us know down in the comments down below. Maybe someday we'll do a Bullet for My Valentine to start the episode.
Definitely. So, guys, that was the Trivium Discography episode. If you guys listen to them, please let us know down below what your favorite album is by them, maybe what your favorite song is, who's your favorite member of the band, what's your favorite album cover. And as
do
always,
you think they have a self-titled album? Because I know I did.
What do you think should be their next album?
Progressive death metal.
Dinosaurs, that would be kind of cool. Progressive, yeah. You guys can always find whoever channel that you're watching it on the other co-host. Their link is in the description below.
Guys, I'm going to tell you that we've got quite an impressive selection of episodes to listen to now. I mean, we've done, our first episode was on Metallica's discography. Our second episode was on core bands. Our third episode was on power metal. And our fourth episode was on new metal. So we actually have a good, diverse selection of episodes for you guys to check out if you're new to the podcast.
And you to the podcast.
What?
Like new metal.
Oh, and you to the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, yeah, we definitely have a good selection of videos to check out. And like I said, guys, Drum Dumps was on the last episode. And if you haven't checked that one out, you definitely need to go there because it actually got a little heated on the last episode between the three of us because I, liked a couple bands these guys didn't like. So, so it's definitely worth a listen. You can find Tim at TheLateReviews 1 on YouTube. I don't know why it has a 1 at the end.
Some other guy took the other one.
I guess he was number 1. I don't have a YouTube handle, but you can find me at Zach vs. the Blue Red Mountain. You can find me on Letterboxd. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, all that fancy shit. You can find Tim there as well on all those things. Not on my pages, but on his own. And what's the next episode going to be, Tim?
If it's not going to be progressive metal with Lee, because we will try to get that episode out when we can, when all our schedules work together. I think we should do a Deathgasm commentary / review as well. I think we should talk about that movie because that movie is seriously fucking metal.
It's probably the most metal movie you guys are ever going to see, and I feel like that's going to be a good thing. I feel like if you guys have Deathgasm and you want to watch it with us on the commentary track because we're a couple of douchebags that think we know everything about metal, you can definitely listen to us talk about probably the most metal thing I've ever seen. Tim and I both have it on Blu-ray. If you guys have it,
it's on Netflix.
It's on Netflix. If you guys don't have it, it's also on Netflix, so you can watch it along with us while we do our commentary. It's going to be a first for the Metal Claw podcast. We're not actually going to talk about metal, as a certain genre or anything. I think it's going to be a nice little change because I think we covered a few different genres at this point, and I think y'all know where we stand. So I think it's time to do something a little bit different.
I stand alone.
With Tim, was that for Mountain? We stand with Sully Erna. I don't know if he does. I do. But you can find us on that social media shit. You can find us possibly Sunday, possibly next week. If you don't see progressive metal this weekend or sooner, you'll find us on the Deathgasm commentary track. So either way, it's going to be a fun time. Do you have anything else you want to add before we go here?
In waves.
I love Vengeance Falls and David Draymond. All right, guys. I hope you loved this episode of the podcast. I think we had a really good time talking about Trivium. Check them out if you haven't. This has been Zach versus the Blue Ridge Mountain. That has been Tim from the Late Reviews. Stay metal, my friends.
Stay metal, my friends.
That was the Metal Claw Podcast. Subscribe to Zach versus the Blue Ray Mountain in the Late Reviews for more brutality.